It was a Tuesday morning. I had just finished my daily kung fu routine when I went outside to fill my bird feeder. I've got a ton of feathered friends who frequent my yard, and they get a little grumpy if I forget their breakfast.
So as you can see, it has the transcript in line with the audio, as do all of our resources on Listenwise, and that's especially important when you're dealing with pre-readers. You also have the ability to slow down the audio. And then the assignment resources present a bank of listening comprehension questions that are geared toward elementary students, as well as vocabulary we believe they'll find challenging that you can help set up for success before the listening, and some listening organizers. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Jim, because didn't you use this lesson with your students? Tell me how you used it and what the reaction was.
Yes, we did use this. In fact, it was a really nice compliment to a story that we were reading out of Explorer magazine about Darwin and finches. So your reading complemented by audio is fantastic. When we set this up, the teacher directions are so nice because they give you suggestions for things to discuss, questions to ask prior to actually launching the story with prior to listening. I found that the framing and the questions, the setup was really quite nice. It was logical, it made sense, and it also helped me, a teacher who's somewhat inexperienced at actually teaching listening skills, to do this. And I feel more comfortable the more I use this. We took a look at some of the vocab. The vocabulary is kind of nice to call out explicitly. And as we looking through the words and kind of shedding some light on these, as the idiom shed some light, you see there, it's really nice for me to be able to work with my EL students. My students have several of those. My students who are struggling students, maybe a little bit more literal thinkers for fifth graders, to be able to define these in context, to give some examples, and then to ask questions that would relate to it. So like, what's something you could shed light on? The listening organizer that we used for this was the language identification organizer. This was a really nice preview of the phrases that they were going to hear throughout the course of the story. And what they can do is check them off as they're going. I also realized too that the identification organizer is a nice way to summarize some of what you heard at the end. So students can actually use those phrases if they wanted to write some sentences that would help explain. When it came to listening, typically I'll start off whole class with the first couple stories of the year, but by this time of the year, I had several students who were able to do this on their own. They were able to use the listening identification guide. They also realized too that there would be some questions, some comprehension questions that would go along with this. Those questions help them kind of focus in on what they need to listen to, what they probably wanted to try and understand as it went along.
And Jim,
I would also pull, oh yeah, go ahead.
And Jim, did you use the create assignment button? Sorry, Jim, did you, hold on, I'm gonna just back that up because I think we can
Yep.
add that. And Jim,
Yep.
did you use the create assignment tool with your students?
Absolutely, and that's the power of this, is that you can have students doing this individually or on their own. So when I'm filling in the name of this assignment, I'll definitely want to make sure I know what it is. I do allow students to see transcript. I love to see that. I do love to choose listening organizers. Like I said, the listening language identification one was helpful. The question answer, the T-chart, is also a wonderful one that you're showing on screen. As students are listening and have questions, they can either respond to answers that they get, or I'll ask them to listen to questions that were asked and then provide answers that were given. So either way, they're interacting with it. It's not passive. And I think that's the most important part I would want to get across. With the assignment feature, we have questions that students can respond to in order to show their comprehension. I love that we can add questions as well to tailor maybe specifically to what we're doing. So if I wanted to go back to Darwin and finches, I can maybe go with that. They're usually, though, really just ready to plug and play. I love the questions as they come standard. Once I click save and go to next, I have the opportunity to select my materials. I love to pair the audio with something visual. So like you just selected the NASA radar one. That's a great map that shows birds basically taking flight at night, and it's shown with weather radar pieces. And also the video, I love that video, the bird migration. It's a TED Ed video. So audio, visual, video. I love to give some instructions, some basic teacher instructions to my students written in my own voice so that they're familiar with it. I love the story synopsis that you offer too. It's a really quick, age-appropriate look at the story, which then takes it off of me from having to summarize and write. So it's already ready for me to go. When I click save, I select the due date when I want it to be due by, and also which class I want it to be, and it's super easy. And like you're doing, I can assign it to some students or all students. So it's very simple for me to do.